What's up, my hippies? It's me, Emily, and today I'm going to tell you guys how I went vegan.
I said I'm happy, and you've got to understand that you got it made, and you should be
vegan as fuck. Well, I've been on the vegan journey for, I want to say about 5 years, but there was a 6th year involved where I was vegetarian. It's hard for me to remember not being vegan and how I was when I used to eat meat and cheese and all of that. I just feel like I've been vegan for such a long time now. I thought it would be useful to other people who are interested in going vegan to share my story and how I became vegan and what steps I took and kind of what interested me about being vegan and the vegan community. I feel like there are so many different reasons to go vegan. We have the well-being of animals and being an advocate for animals because they can't really use their voice to advocate for themselves. I feel like the other reason why people go vegan is because of health reasons. They want to be more healthy, they want to be more fit. It's a way to get more vegetables and fruits in your diet. And I feel like the third reason that people go vegan typically is because of the environment and that it is more environmentally friendly than eating meat. When you kind of do your research on how the meat production, dairy production affects the environment, you kind of understand how being vegan does have a positive impact on the environment. So those are the 3 main reasons why I feel like people go vegan. Maybe there are other reasons such as like food allergies, if you're allergic to dairy or eggs, or you simply just don't like eating meat in general. Maybe you would choose to be vegan in that situation. So not everyone chooses to go vegan for the same reasons, which I think is really important to note. So like I said, I started this journey technically 6 years ago. I came across an article on Facebook about McDonald's chicken nuggets. I'm sure a lot of you guys have seen that article. It was really popular in that time about 6 years ago, and it basically talked about the pink slime, the famous pink slime that they make their chicken nuggets and chicken patties out of. And basically in the article it was showing like microscopic views of a chicken nugget from McDonald's, and inside the microscope they found like wire, they found blood inside of a chicken nugget. There shouldn't be any kind of foreign objects inside of the food that we're consuming, so the fact that they found like little wire bits in there was really disturbing to me. Also, just the process of the pink slime making in general was extremely disgusting to me. I think I cut out McDonald's the next day. I was like, I'm not ever eating at McDonald's. And I used to eat at McDonald's at least 3 times a week, if not more. So it was a huge thing for me to cut out McDonald's, but that article is what did it. Once I found out the truth about their chicken, about their meat, it grossed me out, and I was like, I am not eating McDonald's ever again. So I started by cutting out McDonald's. I eventually just chose to cut out fast food in general. I was like, you know what? All of this fast food meat is the same. It's disgusting. It comes from the same place. I'm not eating fast food meat at all. So I strictly did not go to fast food restaurants at all after that. Was really grossed out by the idea of where they get their meat and the fact that most of it probably wasn't just 100% meat. I watched a documentary called Food Inc. There was a clip in that documentary where the farmers had cut out a piece of like the cow's side, and they had put like this plastic ring around it with a little door. And that sounds terrifying, I know, but they did this, and they would basically put grass inside the cow's stomach just from that hole, and that's how they would feed their cows and bulk their cows up in order to be fat enough to slaughter them. And I think it actually showed cows being slaughtered in that footage as well, which was very disturbing to me. Watching them kill an animal was traumatizing at that point. I was like, whoa, like this animal actually has feelings, it has emotions, and they're just being so careless. They're cutting holes in the side of cows and feeding them basically through their stomachs. Like, what kind of life is that for an animal? So something about that video just really touched me, and I decided that I was not going to buy meat from any like really big corporation, that I was gonna go like all natural, organic, grass-fed, free roaming cows only. So whenever I'd go to the store and buy meat, I would buy like the most expensive meat possible. I would pay so much money to make sure that my meat was coming from a good source, coming from free roaming cows, grass-fed cows, and just making sure that I was buying from places that were treating their animals fairly. And that to me was kind of like the next step into getting to being vegetarian. So I think this journey started in, I want to say like November of 2013. I think it was around February or March of 2014. I watched a documentary called Frankensteer. I believe it's still on Netflix. It was on Netflix back then. I think you can still watch it. But it basically shows the life of cattle and how they are raised in the meat industry. Basically, they're pumped full of antibiotics, they're pumped full of steroids to make them big. They're, you know, a lot bigger on cattle farms than they should be at such a young age because they're taking steroids. They're also just stepping in their own filth all day. So not only are they not being let out into a pasture and free roaming, they are basically stuck in dirt piles, crowding on top of each other, standing in their own waste, and it's pretty sad to watch them being treated that way. It basically went over like how unnatural that process is and how we take a baby cow and bulk it up to look like an adult cow in just a couple of months, and then we slaughter it. So they really don't have a long lifespan like we think they do. They're only being bred and raised to be meat, and it's just a continuous cycle that goes on and on and on. So after I watched that, I definitely decided that I was going to be vegetarian. I was like, you know what, it's too much. Like, it's too much not knowing where my meat is coming from and not knowing if I can trust the sources that I'm purchasing. I'm just going to cut out meat altogether. I was pretty pissed off. It's hard to really know like where you're getting your meat from. I think unless you drive down to a farm and purchase from a local farmer, you're not going to know where your meat comes from, and that's just a fact. Like, they can say grass-fed all they want, they can say free roaming all they want, but that could mean free roaming in their own filth and waste. It could mean grass-fed by having a hole cut into their stomach. It does not mean that they're out in a pasture and actually being free and living their lives. So that was the deciding factor of me being vegetarian. I actually originally started to go vegan. I was like, I'm gonna be vegan. I'm gonna do this. And you know, about a week or two into it, I realized that there were just some things I was not ready to give up. I was able to give up meat really easily. That was not a problem for me. After watching the footage of where my meat came from, I was pretty disgusted, and I was like, I'm never gonna eat meat again, ever. I was able to cut out dairy because the dairy industry definitely sickened me. I just could not bear the thought of watching baby cows being dragged away from their moms. That was just something that really hit home to me, and the fact that we're artificially inseminating them and forcing them to have babies just for the sake of producing milk was very sickening to me. So I was not eating meat and I was drinking plant-based milk, which was awesome. However, I was still eating things that had like dairy in them. So when at my work, they would have like pastries and baked goods, and I would eat those. They did have milk and eggs in them, so that's why I couldn't consider myself a vegan at that time, because I was eating that stuff on a regular basis. I also was eating eggs once in a while. I wasn't really aware of the egg industry at that time. I didn't really understand how eggs contributed to animal cruelty at that time, so I kind of made a little baby step into being like semi-vegan. I was almost there, just not quite, but I really enjoyed it. I felt like that change was what was right for me, and immediately I felt like this is the path I wanted to go down. I never had second guesses on this choice, and I knew that it was a choice that I wanted to make 100%. It was something that I was ready for, and it felt great. It felt great to be vegetarian and to know that I was not contributing to as much animal cruelty as I was before. I did a lot of research, so I started looking into being vegan. I started looking into why it's important to be vegan and what being vegan means. I watched Forks Over Knives. I watched a bunch of documentaries at that time. I was just fueling my brain with being vegan. I almost became obsessed with it, and I knew that that was something that I wanted to work towards. I knew that I wanted to get to that point. I just had to give myself some time. So it was a long process process. I was vegetarian for about 1.5 years, and then I was sitting down one night on YouTube and I was like looking for just free vegan documentaries to watch, and I came across Earthlings. Now, I had heard other vegans talking about this documentary and how much it affected them, and that it was one of the main documentaries to make them go vegan. And I was like, there's no way. Like, I've watched so many documentaries, I have yet to find one that can make me go vegan, you know? So I actually don't think that you can watch Earthlings on YouTube anymore. I think they've taken it down, which kind of sucks because it's a really good documentary. But I decided to watch it. I was sitting at home alone and I watched it. It talks about how animal shelters kill their animals, which was terrible. I will never ever forget that. It talks about the fur industry and the leather industry, which that was like one of the hardest things to watch, was the fur industry. I don't even think I could get through all of that. It was absolutely terrible. The leather industry, absolutely terrible. It's extremely graphic footage. So if you really want to know like the truth behind where your fur and leather comes from and how they treat animals in the animal shelters and where your dairy comes from and your eggs and your meat, if you really want to know the truth behind that, it will show you the full 100% raw truth behind that, which, you know, I knew, I suspected that it was like that, but when you actually watch it happening to these animals, it just breaks your heart. I remember sitting there and I was shaking because I was crying so bad. I don't even think I got through the whole video. I think I only got through like the leather, the meat, dairy, egg industry, and I think when it got to the fur and the animal testing, I had to shut it off. I just couldn't bear to watch the fur being ripped off of animals. That was just like, that was too much for me. So that was the documentary that did it. It really did make me go vegan. I immediately the next day threw out everything that I had that wasn't vegan, and I made the switch the next day. I was like, that's it. I'm not contributing to the cruelty of animals. I'm gonna do my part and not contribute to that. I donated anything that had like leather or wool in it because I was not gonna keep that around, and then I did change my eating habits overnight. It was a big step, and that documentary is what did it. I was like, this is terrible. I've been contributing to this my entire life. It was definitely easier at that point. I think I needed that motivation to really make that switch. I was already almost there. I just had to find some good substitutions, and I went from there. So I started making tofu scramble in the morning instead of eggs. I was buying vegan cheese for the first time and actually experimenting with what cheeses I liked, and actually have fallen in love with vegan cheese. But it was really fun experimenting and kind of coming up with new flavors, new recipes, and it was overall just a really exciting time for me. I felt like I was actually contributing to something, and to be honest, I didn't have a set goal of I'm gonna be vegan for this long and see how it goes. I was just like, I'm gonna be vegan and that's who I am. Like, that's what I was meant to be, was vegan. And it just felt like such the right choice for me. Even to this day, you know, 6 years later after my whole entire journey, I cannot imagine myself not being vegan. I absolutely 100% think that I was meant to be vegan. It's something that I am very proud to say that I am, and despite all of the backlash that vegan community gets and all of the judgment that we get and all of the criticism that we have to deal with, I could not imagine not being a voice for the voiceless. That's honestly like my biggest passion in life, is being vegan and, you know, being the voice of all of these animals. So it gets me emotional. I just, you know, I love animals so much. I've always loved animals, and I just don't think that farm animals should be excluded from that love that I have. I honestly am a huge believer that if you love animals, you will not eat them and you will not do anything to harm them or pay someone else to do anything to harm them. If you truly do love them, you would love them alive and happy and in their natural habitat. That's my biggest belief. You can disagree if you feel, that's totally fine, but I do believe that when you are an animal lover, then you love all animals. It's so interesting when people say they're an animal lover, but then they eat meat. Well, maybe you might be like a dog lover or a cat lover or something, but you're definitely not like an animal lover, because you wouldn't eat your dog or your cat, right? I guess unless you absolutely had to. Yeah, I can't imagine. I would rather starve before I ate my cats. If it came down to it, I would just die with them, you know? Go down with them. They're my family. I feel like this journey has just brought me to a new form of enlightenment and knowledge, and I'm really grateful for that. I'm obviously still learning and still growing. I'm not perfect by any means. I have made mistakes, purchased products that aren't vegan and didn't find out till after I've bought them and had to throw them away or give them to someone. So it is a learning process. You are going to make mistakes. Being vegan is not about being perfect. I think that's a huge misconception, is that vegans think they're perfect. We don't try to be perfect at all. We don't want to be perfect. I think we just want to try our best to advocate for animals and really be their voice. I don't think it has anything to do with being perfect and not making mistakes. And I think it's super important to realize that before you make the choice to be vegan. When I first went into it, I thought that I had to be perfect. That's why I failed at being vegan first, was I thought I had to be 100% perfect right off the bat. And so taking that year and a half to be vegetarian and, you know, learning more, researching more, watching more documentaries really helped me finally be ready to be vegan. And everyone kind of moves at their own pace, but every little tiny effort does count, and it does make a difference in an animal's life in the long run. Okay, that's how I became vegan. I wouldn't take anything back. I love the journey. I loved where it's led me. I love my food choices now. I love my life now. I love being vegan. It's amazing. It's one of the best choices that I've made for myself, and I'm really proud of myself for maintaining it for this long, and I'm looking forward to many, many, many years of being vegan. I really do appreciate you guys watching this video. If any of you guys are vegan, let me know in the comments below. I love connecting with other vegans, or if you're vegetarian, or if you're curious about being vegan as well, just let me know in the comments below. I love talking about veganism and having it as a common interest to other people. If you did enjoy this video, please don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel. I put out new videos every Friday. I really hope you guys are having a great weekend, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye!